All right, so as the title suggests, we've got two new fragrances here from French Avenue. One being their Royal Blend line, and this is going to be Royal Blend Vintage. The other is from that basically the same line that has like the fragrances like Liquid Brune and Azur Oud. This is going to be French Avenue's Luscious. So Luscious, this is going to be their take on what is it? Yum Pistachio from K. Ali. I can't remember the exact name of that fragrance, but this is basically what this fragrance is inspired by. And then the Royal Blend Vintage, this is their take on Old Fashioned by Killian. All right, so you get the same presentation that you get with like Royal Blend as well as like Royal Blend Nero, with the same sort of box. It is going to look slightly different for the most part, but you are getting for the most part the same kind of presentation. Now you get the name of the fragrance here on the front with the plaque that says Royal Blend, French Avenue. This is an extrait de parfum. You get French Avenue logo up top, and then you get kind of like these textured lines on the side that kind of go all around the entire box here. On the back, you've got your authenticity sticker, ingredients, as well as like the bottle size. And then on the bottom, you have, what is this? Like the barcode and the actual batch date. All right. So this particular bottle, this one was produced in January of this year. All right, so this one is Royal Blend Vintage, and as you can see, basically the bottle is going to look exactly the same as Royal Blend. I would say really the biggest way that you can kind of tell the difference between the two fragrances is the Royal Blend juice is going to be a little bit more darker than what the Royal Blend Vintage is. And then obviously this one says Royal Blend Vintage on the plaque as opposed to just Royal Blend, all right? But other than that, I would say really that's the best way to really kind of, tell the difference. This is more kind of like a yellowish, goldish, colored juice, whereas this is more kind of like that, like cognac, darker sort of brownish colored juice, all right? So, just to kind of go over the note breakdown of Old Fashioned by Killian, just to kind of give you an idea of what this fragrance is. In the top notes of Old Fashioned, you're going to get wheat and Divana. In the mid, you get Immortelle and cedar, and then in the base, you get Tolu balsam and styrax. Now, I couldn't find the actual, and you know what, let me see. The note breakdown might actually be on this card. Let me see. Okay, so yeah, for Royal Blend Vintage, you get top notes of Divana. In the mid, you get Helixisum, something, I don't know what that is, rum, tonka bean, and chocolate. And then in the base, you get sandalwood, amber, cedarwood, labdanum, Tolu balsam, moss, musk, and vanilla. So there's a larger sort of note breakdown, for the Royal Blend Vintage for sure. But we'll have to see exactly how close this comes to the original fragrance. Now, I do have a sample of Royal Blend Vintage that was supposed to have been here today. But here lately with the Postal Service, that didn't happen. So hopefully it'll get here by tomorrow. But so far, what I get from this fragrance is it comes off as smelling like extremely like boozy and alcoholic when you first spray this on. So when I sprayed this on initially, yeah, what I get anyway to my nose, and I mean, I'm not paying any attention to what the notes say, but at least to my nose, this smells very, very boozy, almost kind of like somebody just like poured a drink or like spilled a drink on you. I would say, more specifically, kind of like a dark liquor type of drink. So like, maybe some cognac or something like that. Like that's what this smells like. And it's not mixed with anything either. Like this was just straight cognac and maybe some ice or something like that. But you don't have anything mixed in with it. It was just cognac straight. And that's for the most part what I get from this, when you initially spray it on. Now, as it starts to dry down, I feel like you kind of get like a woody sort of feel to this fragrance as well. So, I mean, for the most part, I mainly kind of get, like booze and woods for the most part. I mean, I don't really know what wheat necessarily smells like, but that's for the most part the main things that I get from this fragrance. It definitely comes off as a very, again, sort of alcoholic, sort of boozy scent. Now, it does project pretty good for probably like the first 45 minutes to an hour, but I feel like after that, the single time that I've worn this fragrance, it started to become a lot closer to my skin after about that first hour or so. So that was definitely a surprise because, I mean, the way that this comes off, I was expecting it to actually have better performance than something like Royal Blend did. But for sure, this doesn't project for as long as what Royal Blend does. And it also doesn't have as good of longevity as what Royal Blend does. So, I mean, that could just be the fact that this is a brand new bottle. It may get better over time. But I feel like with the original Royal Blend, this one performed really well just straight out of the box. Whereas this fragrance, it seems like it, after probably 5 to 6 hours or so, it's like barely there, at least on my skin. So I'll have to definitely give this one more wearings to kind of see, exactly where it is performance wise. But at least so far anyway, like I said, I'm getting pretty average performance out of it. Now also, I don't necessarily know where I stand with this fragrance. It reminds me of fragrances like Mugler's, what was it, Single Malt, I think is what that fragrance was called, or Pure Malt, I think it was Pure Malt from Terry Mugler. This fragrance reminds me a lot of something like that. Now, I've never smelled like the Single Malt from by Killian, which from what I understand is like old fashioned. It's kind of like a re-release of that fragrance with like some slight sort of differences made to it. I've never smelled the original Single Malt, but it seems like the Single Malt and Pure Malt from Terry Mugler. I don't know why I can't say that name. It seems like those fragrances, they seem to be kind of like within the same sort of wheelhouse. So they do definitely have, some similarities to them. I wasn't necessarily like the hugest fan of Pure Malt from Terry Mugler when I actually smelled that fragrance. So I guess it kind of makes sense, that I'm not necessarily like going that crazy over this particular fragrance. Now, again, I still need to wear this one more, kind of get used to it, kind of understand it a little bit better. But at least for me anyway, it's not as much of a love as what something like the Angel Share DNA is, at least for me. Now, they do have another fragrance coming out within the same bottle, or within the same sort of line, within the Royal Blend line. It's called Royal Blend Bourbon. Now, looking at the bottle, it looks like it should probably be like an Angel Share Paradis interpretation. From what I understand, it's not. It's like an original fragrance from French Avenue. So we'll see, what that fragrance actually is and how it smells. But, at least so far, that one seems to be an original fragrance. So I would definitely say, I think if you are a fan of, again, single malt from by Killian, or, old fashioned from by Killian, if you like that scent profile, or, even pure malt from Terry Mugler, then you'll probably like this fragrance. I'll have a follow-up video, going over exactly how close this is to the original. But at least for me anyway, in my taste so far, this is kind of like, it's just okay for me. All right. So I won't be going over the performance or anything like that in detail on either one of these fragrances. This is just basically like my first impressions on both of them. All right. So that one is Royal Blend Vintage. All right, so the next one that we have on the list here, this one, again, it's going to be French Avenue's Luscious. All right, so you got the name of the fragrance here, Luscious, on the front. You've kind of got this like fake green diamond here. You've got French Avenue written down at the bottom, French Avenue written on the top. And then you don't have anything on the sides, except for on the back here, you've got the ingredients, French Avenue, the authenticity sticker. And then at the bottom is where you have like the barcode and the production date. This particular fragrance, this one was actually produced in July of last year. All right, so this fragrance has actually been out for a while. I was thinking about initially picking this fragrance up, when I first saw that they released, kind of like these fragrances within that line. But this one I kind of stayed away from, because looking at the note breakdown of the original fragrance from Kayali, I kind of looked at that and was like, this looks like a very sort of feminine, style scent. Now, I don't know exactly how close this one is to the original fragrance. Do have to get a sample of that to do a side-by-side comparison for. Again, this is just first impressions on both of these fragrances. But so far, this fragrance, at least to me anyway, it doesn't come off as being super feminine, at least not to me anyway. So this is what the bottle looks like. The bottle on this fragrance is going to be slightly different than what you're going to get with something like Coco Morado or Azur Oud, or like Liquid Broom. So it's not going to be exactly the same. I believe this bottle is like a little bit wider, and it's also a little bit taller as well. But for the most part, the same kind of presentation that you get with those bottles. So again, you get the name of the fragrance down at the bottom. You get that same sort of fake diamond here, as well as on the top of the cap, French Avenue on the back, and then you've got a French Avenue sticker down here. Now, as far as the concentration on this fragrance, I don't see anything that says that this is an extrait de parfum. And obviously, even on the extrait de parfum fragrances from French Avenue, always the sticker on the bottom of those is always going to say eau de parfum. So I guess I'm assuming that this is just an eau de parfum and not an extrait, because if it was an extrait, they normally would have it written somewhere on the actual box. Now, in terms of the note breakdown between the two fragrances, for the Kayali Yum Pistachio Gelato, in the top notes, you're going to get pistachio, ice cream, bergamot, hazelnut, rum, and cardamom. In the mid, you get lily of the valley, pear, jasmine, peony, geranium, white peach, and raspberry. And then in the base, you get whipped cream, marshmallow, cotton candy, tonka bean, lacune, sandalwood, cacao, and cedar. So a pretty long note breakdown there for the Yum Pistachio. Now the Luscious from French Avenue, at least from what I remembered, and I'm just pulling that up right now, I don't believe this had as elaborate of like a note breakdown as what the Kayali did. So we're gonna go over that here now. All right, so for the Luscious, you're gonna get in the top notes pistachio, cardamom, and bergamot. In the mid, you get peanut and saffron. And then in the base, you get vanilla, tonka, honey, and musk. So a much simpler note breakdown here for the French Avenue Luscious. Now, in terms of like what I get from this fragrance when I spray it on, and this is, both on skin as well as, even on the tester strip, because I have worn this fragrance. And at least for me anyway, this comes off as definitely very pistachio forward. I mean, that is undeniable. That's the first thing that you smell. I would say is pistachio and cardamom, but definitely more pistachio than anything is what I mainly get from this fragrance. And I mean, when I first sprayed it on, especially looking at the note breakdown of like the original Kayali Yum Pistachio Gelato, I was expecting more of sort of like this, I don't know, like more maybe vanillic, more like creamy and super like sweet, super feminine style fragrance. And that's, at least with the Luscious, that's not really what I'm getting from this. I think you could technically say that this is a little bit kind of like feminine leaning, like maybe just slightly, but this still, to me, it smells very much like a unisex, sort of nutty, airy sort of scent. So, I mean, the other thing that I was kind of expecting was for this to be more of like a denser sort of scent than what it is. And, when you spray this on, it doesn't come off as being super dense. It definitely is like I said, a very kind of airy, more lighter style scent. It definitely comes off as very nutty. I do feel like there is a slight sort of freshness that this fragrance has as well, and I believe that that's coming from that bergamot note that's in the initial opening of this fragrance. So that adds to the freshness that this has when you first spray it on. But yeah, I mean, the main things again that I get from this, at least in the opening, are it's kind of like it smells to me like a ground sort of pistachio. I don't necessarily get like a pistachio gelato or ice cream sort of feel from this fragrance. It just kind of feels more kind of like if you were to make some sort of paste out of, pistachios, or a pistachio butter or something like that. That's kind of the feel that I get from this. But again, it kind of has like that sort of fresh, airy sort of feel from like the bergamot as well, and the cardamom. So both of those, I feel like the cardamom and the bergamot give this a freshness, at least in the opening. And then, I mean, there is definitely a kind of nutty sort of peanut aspect to the fragrance as well. I don't really pick up on too much of any sort of saffron from this fragrance. And then in the far dry down, for the most part, I mainly just kind of get like a slight sort of hint of vanilla with like a lot of musk. That's for the most part what I get with this fragrance. So this was not like, when I initially smelled this, like I said, I was definitely expecting something totally different. It wasn't like necessarily a love at first sniff, but after wearing this fragrance, I found myself smelling myself a lot. So, I mean, I think when you smell this fragrance in the air, it smells a lot better than, if you just spray it on like the back of your hand and you're constantly smelling it up close. To me, this is not one of those types of fragrances that you'll want to just smell like up close like that. This is definitely a fragrance that you'll want to smell kind of in the air, either both on yourself or, catching the sillage from another person wearing it. Again, this is not a fragrance to me that comes off as smelling super feminine. So I think men and women can definitely still enjoy this fragrance. And I mean, that's been something that I've kind of seen with a lot of Kayali fragrances, even though it seems like a lot of her fragrances, if not all of them, I guess, are more kind of marketed towards women. I mean, I've smelled several of them that, to me, I feel like I would still wear them, because I actually like them. So this is another one of those fragrances that I feel like I would definitely wear for sure. Now, Again, I still have to get my sample of the original young pistachio gelato to really be able to see exactly how close this comes to the original. But I think on its own, this is still a solid, kind of nutty, light, airy sort of, unisex style fragrance. All right. Performance wise, this was also kind of average, so far when I've worn it. So longevity wise, I feel like you're looking at like around 6 hours or so with this one maximum. And, in terms of the projection, it's not so far, at least on me anyway, it's not a very strong projecting scent. I'll have to see, if the original from Kayali is the exact same way, but at least this fragrance here, the Luscious, it just doesn't seem to be a very sort of beast mode or strong scent at all. All right. But I would say this would definitely be something that would probably be best suited for like the spring. And I would even say this is light enough that you could probably wear this in the summertime as well. Now, how this would come across in the summertime, I don't really know. Because I mean, again, it's a very sort of nutty forward, style fragrance. So I don't necessarily know if I would want to smell like pistachios in the summertime per se. But I think it is light enough to where you probably could wear this in the summertime. All right. So that is my take on Luscious as well as Royal Blend Vintage. Definitely let me know what you all think about these fragrances. Like I said, I'll definitely, once I get samples of both of these, I'll be doing, actual, full reviews and side-by-side comparisons of both of these fragrances to let you know exactly how close these come. But definitely let me know if you all have actually smelled both the originals as well as these. Let me know how close you think the Luscious as well as the Royal Blend Vintage comes to the original fragrances. All right. Also, I'll have links in the description to where you can purchase both of these fragrances. And if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see you on the next video.